Welcome everyone to the Antarctic Cryptids Iceberg Explained. I wanted to do a series of cryptids from each continent and thought Antarctica would be the best place to start because of the mysteries it holds and also just because of the weather right now. So we'll be going through all the obscure encounters and mysteries from there. Now without further ado, let's get into it. Tier 1. The Culian Sea Serpent. The Medical Repository received word from Samuel Mitchell on July 17, 1814, saying he was told of an encounter from a ship's captain. The captain was traveling near Kerguelen Islands, where the crew saw what they thought was a rock at first. However, the crew, alongside their captain, realized it was a moving object. It was a large creature that was clearly alive and moving toward the ship. In order to avoid collision, the crew adjusted their course, but stayed close enough to observe it. The animal passed just behind the ship's rudder. The part that was visible is estimated to be about 20 by 15 feet. Now, despite the guns being loaded and ready to fire at the creature, the crew was so overwhelmed by the sheer size and presence of the creature that they ended up not taking any action, deciding instead to let it continue undisturbed. The animal's movements were slow and steady, and it was described to be longer than the ship. Its head was indistinct, blending into the body except for a slight knob or bend, while the surface of the skin looked like it had wrinkles. Sera Rosia. There were creatures spotted in the Antarctic waters south of the Indian Ocean in December 1967. There were two helicopter pilots, Ivan Daz and Fyodor Dolzenko, who saw what they described as giant snake-like creatures. They were described to be almost 50 feet long and 3 feet wide, and had light brown skin. At first, they were seen resting on the surface of the water, but they later began moving in a wavy motion. They were worried about their ships as the creatures could be potentially dangerous, so the nearby vessels were warned to be cautious. This report came from Mikhail Izbenko, who was a journalist that was on the whaling ship named the Sera Rosia. After the sighting, there were many similar reports that came up. Some of them were described as creatures hunting small pods of whales, while others mentioned that there were larger groups traveling together. Antarctic Longfin Whale. There are sightings of whales in the southern oceans, which are called the Antarctic longfin whales, and are thought to be a possible species of small, dark whale, but its existence remains unconfirmed. There were reports of unidentified whales, particularly throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, that have often been linked to this species. These whales are estimated between 20 and 30 feet long, with some notable sightings recorded over the years. In 1814, during an expedition in the Ross Sea near Ross Island, James C. Ross and Robert McCormick stated that they saw a whale with a long dorsal fin. Later on in 1902, there was a zoologist, Edward A. Wilson, that documented similar cetaceans during Robert Scott's discovery expedition in the Antarctic waters. The whales were described as black with some white markings around their mouths or chins. They also had distinctive dorsal fins, which were about 3 to 4 feet long and were sharply pointed and shaped like sabers. There was another sighting that occurred later in 1964 when Robert Clark and his colleagues saw 8 encounters with a high-finned whale species near the coast of Chile. These whales, which were about 20 feet in length, were said to have round faces and a unique streak-like marking. Clark also suggested they might represent an unknown species related to the false killer whale or Rissel's dolphin. He also compared these whales to those described by Wilson in 1902, saying there were similarities in size, coloration, and the distinctively tall, pointed dorsal fins. Ningen. Ningen are described as massive, entirely white creatures ranging from 20 to 30 meters long. Some accounts describe them as human-like, complete with arms, legs, and 5-fingered hands, while others mention fins or larger tails similar to those of mermaids. There are also reports of Ningen with tentacle-like limbs resembling some cephalopods, or even smaller, armless humanoid figures. Their faces are said to lack detail, with only eyes and a mouth that's visible. There is one notable report with a group of crew members that mistook what they thought was a distant submarine for a Ningen, but as they got closer, its strange, irregular shape made it clear that it was some type of living creature. Before they could observe it further though, it vanished beneath the waves. This interest in the Ningen spread after discussions on 2channel, which is a Japanese forum that brought attention to these reports. In 2007, it gained further exposure when MU Magazine, which is a Japanese publication focused on paranormal topics, and published an article talking about Antarctic humans. The magazine talked about unknown life forms inhabiting the southern seas and included a screenshot from Google Earth that apparently showed a Ningen near Namibia's coast in the South Atlantic Ocean. Now, despite this fascination, there's no solid evidence proving to confirm their existence. Some suggest that the government has detailed records of these sightings, but has chosen to not share them and allegedly making witnesses stay silent. Most of these reports occur at night, making clear photographs almost impossible to capture, and in the rare images that do exist, the Ningen often appears indistinguishable from just blocks of ice or glaciers. However, some claim that when the images are enlarged, the creature's smooth, human-like skin can be seen. Tier 2. Organism 46b. Organism 46b is a supposed aquatic creature that was encountered by a Russian research team near Vostok Station in Antarctica. It was described as a massive squid-like entity and was claimed to be around 33 feet long with 14 tentacles. The creature was said to have remarkable abilities, such as releasing a toxin into the water that could paralyze prey even if it was really far away. Its tentacles were described as remaining active and dangerous even after being severed. The creature allegedly showed intelligence, hostility, and even an ability to shapeshift into other people. Lake Vostok was discovered in 1974 beneath the Vostok Station, which is a research outpost established by the Soviets in 1957. The lake remained sealed off from the surface for millions of years, and after many decades of drilling through the ice, scientists breached its waters on the 5th of February 2012. It's claimed that this expedition led to the discovery of organism 46b, but there are still unclear details. The first reports about the creature came up online on the 30th of November 2016. Dr. Anton Padalka, who participated in this first scientific dive into the lake, apparently encountered the creature. He claimed it disabled the team's communication equipment on their first day and later used its toxic ability to paralyze and kill a member of their group. The victim appeared calm and almost entranced as the creature approached him, and once it was close enough, it teared him apart with its tentacles. Padalka also described the organism's shape-shifting ability, saying there was an incident where it mimicked the appearance of a human diver and luring another scientist close enough to attack and kill them. Even when the team managed to sever one of the creature's tentacles, it apparently retained the mobility and attacked again with a severed tentacle. Eventually, the surviving members managed to trap organism 46b in a tank and brought it to the surface. However, Padalka claimed that Russian officials took the creature and told the press that nothing of significance has been found. Now, there is skepticism surrounding the story since there are many inconsistencies and just implausible details. For example, the method that was used to drill into the lake, called ice core drilling, creates a passage that's too narrow to allow for human entry, let alone transporting a massive tank or some type of creature. The pressures in the lake's environment would also make direct human interaction with the water impossible without some type of pressurized suit, leading to doubt on claims of being affected by toxins. Also, the ice above Lake Vostok forms directly from the lake water, leaving no gap for an ice shelf where the team could have set up camp. Now, Dr. Padalka himself has proven impossible to locate, and the details of his alleged experiences have only come up through a small number of vague sources. Hotheaded naked ice borer. In April 1995, there was a magazine that published an article about an Antarctic creature called the hotheaded naked ice borer. The article was part of the magazine's tradition of April Fool's stories. This article included a fake picture of a seal-like creature with a weird bony growth coming from its head. This image was created by a deputy art director who manipulated a trilobite's appearance to form the bony growth. According to the story, this animal had been recently discovered in Antarctica. The bony protrusion was described as being filled with blood vessels capable of heating up to temperatures that are high enough to melt ice. With this ability, the creature would burrow through ice to hunt its prey. For example, they would melt the ice beneath unsuspecting animals such as penguins, to causing them to fall into the water where the borers would then consume them. The article even joked that an Antarctic explorer, Philippe Poisson, who vanished in 1837, might have been eaten by these creatures. Now, the name Philippe Poisson itself was a clue, because Poisson d'avril translates to April fish, which is a French term for April Fools. The article's fictional nature was also hinted at by the name of the biologist who allegedly discovered the ice borers, April Pazzo, which means April Fool in Italian. Now, despite all these clues, many readers believe the story. Discover magazine received a large number of mail regarding the article, including some inquiries from scientists and zoo officials asking how they could obtain some of these specimens. Antarctic Godzilla. In 1958, there was a research ship known as Soya, and its crew encountered a strange sea creature near the Flatver Islands in Lutso Bay, Antarctica. There was a large, dark object rising from the water, and it drew their attention toward it. At first, it was suggested this might be a discarded drum, but the object turned around towards the Soya. The ship's chief engineer ran to get his camera, but by the time he got back to the deck, the creature had already disappeared. Everyone on the deck claimed to have seen the animal, and one of the officers observed it closely with binoculars. It was described as having a cow-like head which was about 70 to 80 centimeters long, with a rounded skull, pointed ears, and large eyes. Its face had a monkey-like appearance, and it was covered in a dark brown fur about 10 centimeters long, which seemed to coat its entire body. The engineer also said that the creature had a row of saw-like fins running down vertically along its back. The Cagon. On the 28th of April 1974, the crew of a Japanese fishing vessel, the 28th Kampiramaru, near Liliton Peninsula, New Zealand, saw the Cagon. This creature was described as having a large head about 1.5 meters in height from the nostrils to the top of its head, with big eyes and nostrils. Its color was reported as grayish, and its overall appearance was said to resemble that of an umebozu, which is from Japanese folklore. Only the head was visible during the encounter, since the animal stayed half submerged before eventually diving out of sight. Captain Kimura, along with his crew members on board, witnessed the event, and later on Kimura sketched the creature based on what he saw. After the sighting, the New Zealand Weekly magazine wrote on the event, saying that the mysterious footprints were found on a nearby beach around the same time. Some have said that the Cagon might be related to the Antarctic Godzilla, as they are similar in size and have a weird nature. There have been many hypotheses about what the Cagon might have been. At first, theories said it might have misidentification of pinnipeds, such as seals or walruses. However, walruses are native only to the Arctic regions, which rule them out. Some said the Cagon could be a descendant of an extinct group of marine mammals, known as the Desmostylidae. There are other explanations that say it could have just been a southern elephant seal, which is the largest pinniped. However, there are also descriptions that fit the characteristics of leopard seals, which are known to inhabit Antarctic and subantarctic waters. Tier 3. Southern Narwhal. The southern narwhal was apparently seen in the South Atlantic Ocean and Antarctic waters. The descriptions of this creature include a whale-like body with a single long tusk. One of the first encounters was on the 5th of October 1615. There was a Dutch explorer that said one of his ships was struck by a sea creature in the mid-Atlantic. When the crew inspected the ship, they found a horn measuring about 1 foot long that was stuck in it. Later on, in February 1620, there was another sighting when Augustin de Beaulieu observed a dark blue animal in the South Atlantic near South Africa. He described it as having a porpoise-like shape with a high dorsal fin and a tusk that was approximately 1 to 2 feet long. On December 17, 1892, the crew of the ship Baleina reported encountering a narwhal-like creature in the Bransfield Strait near the Antarctic Peninsula. Some say that the reports may involve misidentifications of swordfish, since their long, pointed sword could resemble the tusk of a narwhal. However, swordfish typically inhabit tropical waters, which makes this explanation implausible for colder regions. There is another theory of an undiscovered narwhal species adapted to cold Antarctic waters. Southern Walrus. There was a naturalist by the name of James Hector who collected stories of walrus-like creatures near New Zealand and thought that such animals may inhabit the Antarctic. He thought that further exploration of these remote areas could uncover such creatures and maybe even other unknown marine species. In the paper, Notes on the Southern Seals, he acknowledged that his claims were based solely on second-hand reports though. In 1852, Hugh de Bonelli saw a large marine animal with tusks off Isla San Lorenzo in Peru. His 1854 book, Travels in Bolivia, describes the creature as having a seal-like head with 2 large white tusks coming from its mouth. Its body was covered in a glossy coat large in size and swam quickly, occasionally surfacing and then disappearing again underwater. Bonelli suggested it might have been an elephant seal, but he also acknowledged that elephant seals lack such prominent tusks. Now, about a century later, there were fossils of the extinct Miocene tusked whale that was found in the same region. However, this species had a distinct head shape and no fur, which differs from Bonelli's description. There are also sightings of large seals near the Antarctic and off the coast of New Zealand that have been reported, including by the Japanese vessels Soya and Kampiramaru. These sightings, however, don't include animals with tusks though. There are some researchers that say these reports may involve a previously undiscovered species of walrus that evolved or migrated to the southern hemisphere during the Miocene-Pliocene epochs. There is an illustration from the Age of Exploration that shows a tusked animal near Tierra del Fuego. Some suggest it may have been an artistic attempt to reconstruct a Smilodon skull though, which is just influenced by local stories or misunderstandings. Kerguelen Islands horse. In 1814, there was an expedition led on the Kerguelen Islands by James Ross, where he found tracks that resembled those of a pony or donkey. For many decades, horses played a crucial role in expeditions to both the Arctic and Antarctic, but despite their significant contributions, their use was overlooked because of sled dogs and skis being the preferred method of travel. Fridtjof Nansen was one of the first to recognize the potential of horses for these journeys. In his 1888 crossing of Greenland, he made innovations like improved clothing and equipment and also introducing the use of a horse to pull his sledge. This early experiment demonstrated that horses could endure freezing cold conditions, which was later proven in 1893 when Frederick Jackson, a British explorer, traveled thousands of miles across Siberia in the winter. Jackson successfully pulled heavy sledges through the snow with Siberian horses. The following year, he introduced Russian horses to the Arctic during his 1894 expedition to Franz Josef Land. These animals were capable of pulling 700-pound sleds in temperatures as low as -30°F. When traditional feed would run out though, they adapted to consuming dry dog biscuits and even polar bear meat. These observations showed how versatile the horses are in polar exploration, encouraging others to also follow this method. In 1903, Anthony Fiala used Siberian horses on his Arctic expedition, where they demonstrated strengths that went beyond expectations and needed less maintenance than sled dogs. The shift from Arctic to Antarctic exploration led to new challenges though, but horses were still very useful. In 1907, Ernest Shackleton brought Siberian horses on his journey toward the South Pole. He understood that grazing isn't an option, so he worked with the British Army to develop a meat-based ration for the horses. Despite the extreme conditions, Shackleton's horses were crucial for the expedition's progress, with one horse named Socks that got within 90 miles of the South Pole, which is a record for equines in Antarctica. Wilhelm Filchner was a German explorer that brought Manchurian horses to Antarctica and made many observations about their behavior and capabilities. He noted that ponies, unlike dogs, wanted to be on land more eagerly and adapted quickly to their environment, unlike dogs, and demonstrated their remarkable strength by pulling sledges weighing up to 1,200 pounds. Although he didn't travel far inland, he left his horses on South Georgia Island when departing, where they thrived for many years. At that same time, Robert Scott used horses during his Antarctic expedition, along with Indian mules trained in the Himalayas. These animals played a role in the rescue efforts that recovered Scott's party after the tragic end. Meanwhile, Danish explorer Johan Koch relied on Icelandic horses for his 1913 Greenland expedition. These horses were equipped with Scandinavian snowshoes that were able to endure temperatures as low as -50°F and covered over 750 miles of terrain. In 1930, Alfred Wegener led an expedition to Greenland also. He combined skis, sled dogs, and 25 Icelandic horses, and his team used tactics that were developed by earlier explorers. Vigfús Sigurdsson designed underground stables carved from snow to shield horses from the harsh winds, but despite these efforts, Wegener perished in a blizzard, leading to the end of polar exploration with horses. Although horses have eventually disappeared from polar expeditions, in 2004, Swedish explorer Mikael Strandberg went through Siberia and discovered that thousands of Yakut horses, which are descendants of the Siberian breeds, were still thriving in temperatures as low as -60°F. Bloop. The bloop is an underwater sound detected in 1997 by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, known as NOAA, in the South Pacific. At first, theories suggested that the sound source could be from a marine animal that was larger than the blue whale, but it was noted that the sound production doesn't have anything to do with size, since there are creatures like the pistol shrimp, just very small, but can generate sounds as loud as an engine. The NOAA conducted further analysis and in 2012 determined that the bloop's characteristics align with sounds generated by chiroseismic activity. This includes ice quakes that are caused by glacial movements such as ice caving or by ice scraping along the seabed. The source of the bloop was identified near the tip of South America, and the sound was detected multiple times by the Equatorial Pacific Ocean Autonomous Hydrophone Array. This is a system that's developed by NOAA's Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory and was designed to monitor underwater phenomena such as seismic activity, ice noise, and marine mammal migrations. There are other theories about the bloop, such as underwater volcanic activity or icebergs breaking away from the Antarctic ice shelf. In 2014, it was argued that the sound could be from ice breaking off the Antarctic shelf, but this hypothesis lacked definitive confirmation at the time. Volcanic activity was also proposed, but it was unlikely due to the sound's unusual frequency. Now, in 2023, NOAA confirmed that the bloop was indeed caused by glacier ice, specifically related to ice dynamics such as caving or just movement. Tier 4. Delphius albigena. Delphius albigena, which is now known as the Hourglass Dolphin, is said to inhabit the waters of the Southern Ocean. Despite being known to science for nearly 2 centuries, it still remains as one of the lesser seen marine mammals. Unlike other cetaceans, the Hourglass Dolphin was classified based only on eyewitness accounts. French naval surgeons and naturalists Jean-René Constant-Coy and Joseph Paul Gaimard first described the species during an Antarctic expedition in 1824, relying only on a sketch. The distinct markings made this classification possible, since misidentification would be unlikely with such a unique pattern. Now, to date, there's only 6 complete skeletons of the Hourglass Dolphin that have been discovered. The most recent was in 2010 when a specimen washed ashore in New Zealand. New Zealand is also where these dolphins are mostly sighted as well. Julia. Julia is a sound that was recorded on the 1st of March 1999 by hydrophone arrays set up by NOAA. This noise apparently originated from an area between the Bransfield Straits and Cape Adare, and it was named Julia due to its resemblance of a woman's voice underwater. NOAA researchers have analyzed the sound and said it was most likely caused by a large iceberg running aground off the coast of Antarctica. This explanation aligns with similar findings for other unexplained underwater sounds, like the bloop, which was also connected to ice-related phenomena. Thank you for watching, everyone, and if you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.